It's the anniversary of True Romance, and we're looking back at Tarantino's first script directed by Tony Scott with hearts in our eyes. Here are 7 things you didn't know about True Romance. Probably. At the end of the infamous Sicilian scene, Christopher Walken's Vincenzo Cocotti kills Dennis Hopper's Clifford Worley by shooting him in the head. Dennis Hopper wasn't comfortable having the gun right next to his head, but director Tony Scott assured Hopper that it was safe. Scott even demonstrated it on himself. What Scott didn't realize was the barrel of the gun came out about 1/3 of an inch when fired. So when the gun went off, it left a hole in his head. Afterwards, Scott gave Hopper a picture of his bleeding head with an offer to play his stunt double in the future. So the moral of the story is, Dennis Hopper was right. There was a chance his head might have actually exploded like cantaloupe.
Now, if that's a fact, tell me, am I lying?
Let's talk about the Elvis of it all. Quentin Tarantino has said that True Romance is his most autobiographical film, and if the opening monologue taken from Quentin's first short film, My Best Friend's Birthday, of Clarence saying that he wants to f*** Elvis is to be believed, then sure, we'll take your word for it, QT. Tony Scott wanted to use Elvis's music, but the estate did not give permission for his music or likeness to be featured in the film, which even made Val Kilmer's portrayal of Elvis a bit hard to do. Kilmer, while obviously playing Elvis, isn't credited as Elvis. He's actually listed as the mentor. Tony Scott was originally going to show Kilmer's face as Elvis, but without the rights, decided against it. Besides, nobody can Elvis like actual Elvis, especially if you're not officially Elvis anyway. Sticking with another quick Elvis thing, in the motel fight scene, Alabama smashes a bust of Elvis over Virgil's head. 2 years after True Romance came out, Patricia Arquette met and married Nicolas Cage, who is a huge Elvis Presley fan. Honeymoon in Vegas, anyone? Destroying a bust of your future ex-husband's idol is one thing. Destroying the bust of your future ex-husband's future wife's dad? That's another thing. And a mouthful, but there's a segue in here somewhere, I promise. Quentin Tarantino eventually ended up watching True Romance with Lisa Marie, who must have had an odd experience watching someone declare that they'd f*** her dad, and then later seeing someone use her dad's head as a weapon. The film is already stacked with A-list talent before they became A-list stars. Perhaps the most obvious example is Brad Pitt. So, how does a soon-to-be superstar like Brad Pitt get cast in a small role? Apparently by just asking. Pitt was originally considered for Clarence, but he asked Tony Scott to let him play the good-for-nothing roommate instead. Tarantino, who based the Floyd character on his own past roommates, didn't originally write him as a stoner. He also improvised a lot of the lines, making Floyd, for the most part, entirely his own character.
Fucking kill you, man.
But the bong that Floyd smokes out of is actually inspired by Scott's climbing partner, who once made a bong out of a honey bear, named Russell. All of which makes Floyd the biggest mutt of a character in the entire movie. Another soon-to-be superstar in the cast is, of course, James Gandolfini. Before he became the mobster Tony Soprano, he was the low-level mob henchman Virgil. Gandolfini played the taunting soldado so convincingly that it's hard to see anyone else playing the part, but originally, it was someone else. Tom Sizemore was first cast to play Virgil, but ended up playing the role of Officer Nicholson instead. Sizemore actually suggested James Gandolfini take the role of Virgil in his place. To prepare for the role, James lived out of a motel with no telephone and didn't bathe or wash his underwear the whole time. So, even without the phone, it wasn't hard for the production to find him. They just had to follow their nose. In Tarantino's script, the first meeting between Clarence and Elliot takes place at the Los Angeles Zoo. But since the zoo wouldn't let them too close to the animals and is, frankly, a little boring, Tony Scott changed the location to a theme park on a roller coaster. This was very bad news for Michael Rappaport, who hates the mechanical death traps.
Roller coasters.
Unfortunately, the scene needed reshoots, which meant Rappaport had to get on the roller coaster again. He was so nervous about it, he took Quaaludes to get through the scene. You can actually see, cut by cut, which shots came from the first day and which shots came from the second, more blissed out day. The tattoo parlor scene is a short one, but the tattoo motif was originally going to play a much bigger role in the marketing of the film. They even put an ad in LA Weekly looking for someone with pale skin who would agree to be tattooed with Clarence in Alabama for a poster for the film. They found a banker from Orange County willing to get inked, and famed tattoo artist Mark Mahoney did the tattoo. Unfortunately for the banker, the studio went with a different poster. 2 years later, the woman had those tattoos removed because she had a boyfriend who didn't like it. But honestly, good for her for keeping the tat that long. Well, that'll do it for this episode, but let us know in the comments below what your favorite entry into the Tarantino-verse is. And as always, click like and subscribe for more true-ish things about movies and sometimes quaaludes on roller coasters right here on Things You Didn't Know.